In this tutorial, we're going to create a basic animated holding screen to go at the end of a YouTube promotional video. In the last video, we created these graphic elements in Photoshop. If you haven't watched it yet, feel free to have a look for the link in the description. And now we're just going to finish preparing this imagery and then import it into After Effects. So we're going to import Photoshop files with all the imagery that we need into After Effects. So I'm going to get rid of any layers that I don't need anymore. I'm going to also get rid of any background layers, which are just going to be cumbersome. So to get rid of background layers, I click on the lock tool to get rid of it, and I can drag that layer into the bin. And we've got these shapes here. These two lines we're just going to have sort of animated in the background. Obviously they'll be resized. And we've got our logo done as well. So I was going to make sure that everything is named properly. And that looks like that's fine. So I can go ahead and save this Photoshop file. And now we can go ahead and jump into After Effects. Once we're inside After Effects, After Effects can crash every now and then depending on the quality of your computer. So we need to create a new composition and then set up autosave pretty quick. So I'm going to go to Composition, New Composition, and we've got our composition settings here. I'm going to choose, I'll type in 1920 by 1080. If 1080 doesn't automatically appear, type it in yourself or make sure this is checked. 1920 by 1080, 25 frames per second is perfectly fine. Or if you know what frame rate your video footage that you need to put in was shot at, then type that in there instead. I have to choose full resolution as well, and then go ahead and hit, before you hit OK, make sure you've got the duration right. So this duration is 15 seconds long. I might just make it 20 seconds long for now, and then I'll go ahead and hit OK on that. So we've got a new composition here. You can see here it's 20 seconds long. So the first thing I need to do is save this so that autosave can be enabled. So I'm going to do File, Save As, or Control-Shift-S, and then I'm going to save it into a folder. Again, this folder should have some source imagery in there as well. It's really important that you keep your After Effects file next to the source imagery that you use within it, and always move them around computers together. So I'm going to save this as whatever you want to call it, and then go ahead and hit save. And I want to check that autosave is enabled, so I can go to Edit, Preferences, and then go to Autosave, and make sure that Automatically Save Projects is set. Depending on the urgency of the situation and how crashy your computer is, you may want to increase or decrease that. I trust my home computer, but if you're using this somewhere else, perhaps you might want to type in save every 5 minutes just to be safe. And it's going to save it next to your project. So wherever you just saved your After Effects file, it's going to create a folder called Autosave, and every 5 minutes it's going to save it. If you make it save every 1 minute, obviously you can have that little screen appearing every 1 minute just telling you that it's saving for a few seconds, and that might get annoying. So save every 5 minutes, that'll be fine. And it's not going to save more than 5 projects, so your computer won't get clogged up with autosave files. And then you can go ahead and hit OK on that. So I've got a folder here with a bunch of source imagery. In the link to this video, I've put a link into this hexagon shape here that didn't show, along with our logos that we've created and all the resources that we need there. So I'm going to drag these directly into our After Effects project. So I'm going to drag in, I'm going to drag in my logo, complete with its layers. Now, this is really important, what you choose to click on here. The moment you choose to import that Photoshop file, After Effects recognizes that it's not just a normal image, and it wants you to choose how to import it. If you choose import kind, you have to choose composition. If you choose footage, it's not going to work. So if you choose composition, you can have editable layers or separate layers. So make sure that you never ever merge your layers together. So go to composition, hit OK with editable layer styles, and that will import this over there. And so we can see comp 1 refers to this tab that we have open. This is our new composition. There's nothing whatsoever in it. There's another composition above it, and if you click on that, you should see a thumbnail of something there. And so this does have stuff in it. Now I want to drag this logo into my comp like this, and you'll see it pop up there. But you may be thinking, where are the layers? Yes, they are over there, but we can see in our After Effects layers down here. If you want to see our layers in here, all we have to do is double click on this composition. So this icon here means that it's a group. So you can see there's like a bunch of shapes in there. That means there's like a group or lots of stuff inside of this brown layer. So if I double click on that, it opens up a new tab next to comp 1 called the name of the logo. And here I can turn off all the elements of my logo as I choose. So that's good. So just so we don't get confused, we could, if you want, rename your composition. Go to composition settings, and it's currently called comp 1. I'm going to rename this to master comp. This is the composition that you're going to want to render at the end in Media Encoder. So make sure you name it something that sounds really important, so that you don't end up rendering this or something on its own. So master comp. You can also close this down because it's it all in there. So that's a logo. We're going to focus on that to start with and get that all animated. So to start with, I need to sort out the background, make that look a bit more interesting. I'm having trouble zooming here, so I'm just going to go to fit. To change the background color, again, we can go to composition settings, and obviously I'm in the master comp. I can choose the background color. I'm just going to choose an off-white. If I choose pure white, it's going to give us some kind of seizure, so I'm just going to drag it off-white. Something like that. So the values for me are at 213. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK on that. Again, a flat background looks really boring, so I'm going to put in a vignette. If you don't know what a vignette is, then just Google it. You'll see how to spell it in a minute. I'm going to generate one in After Effects. So that's VIGN. And we can see in here we've got some vignettes effects. And so I'm going to drag this vignette effect over. In fact, I'm just going to reset my workspace quick. For whatever reason, if your workspace doesn't look the same as mine, or you've done something horribly wrong, or dragged something, or your cat walked across the keyboard and closed something horribly, like you can just go to Window, Workspace, Reset Standard, and just hit yes. And it will go to the default After Effects standard. So let's say you did something awful and closed your composition and you can't see it anymore. Go to Window, Workspace, Reset, Standard, hit yes, and everything will go back to the way I've got it right now. So we now need to put a vignette over this. And if you don't know what a vignette is, then go ahead and Google VIGNETTE. It's basically dark stuff around the edges. I'm going to go ahead and pop that in. So for this, I need to create a new black shape. So make sure your layer is deselected. That's really important. Otherwise, we'll create a mask for no reason. So my layer is deselected. I've clicked down here. I'm now going to go over to here and create this square. If you can't see a square up there, click and hold and make sure you can see a square. This is going to be the rectangle tool, and make a rectangle that's larger than your document. If your rectangle is any color other than black, move your cursor up here and change it from red or whatever it is to black and hit OK, and then you can deselect that. So make sure, it's really important that the shape that you just drew is larger than the workspace, so just go ahead and zoom out by scrolling and you'll be fine. Okay, the next step, I need to cut a circle out of this rectangle, and it's going to be pretty impossible to do at the moment without pre-composing this layer with with a null object. So a null object is essentially a ghost. It isn't anything, and it's hard to explain. But if you want to have a vignette effect, just do this. Go to layer, new, solid. Sorry, layer, new, and choose null object. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's an object made of nothing whatsoever. But that means that we've got two layers to group together now. So if I click on the null one and that big black shape that we just drew, select them both. So obviously hold down Shift and select both names. I can go to layer, pre-compose. It's probably off the recording screen because it's annoying. But at the very bottom, you will see pre-compose. Click on that, and then this window will pop up and name it vignette. Okay, and then we can do this now. So if you want to see through this now, I'm going to create a mask. It's to be the first of many masks that we create. So I'm going to go over to the ellipse tool, and if I draw the ellipse tool like this, what this is doing is simply revealing the black shape. And now we can see the layer underneath, obviously the white layer. But what I want to do is invert this. I actually want the black to be around the edges of this instead. So I can go down to mask 1 and choose inverted, and then we'll get this effect here. So again, you can just resize your mask if you want. To resize your mask, just click on that mask 1, obviously expand your layer down. You can see where it says masks, and then you can see under there mask 1. Click on the word mask 1. And then you can drag to select individual points of your mask. I'm just going to move them off of the screen. So we have something roughly like this. And that'll be fine. So it looks pretty rubbish at the moment. We need to blur it a lot. So there's something over here called mask feather. I'm going to drag my mask feather up to about 300 pixels or more, like this. And then you can even use mask expansion and drag that up or down to increase the size of the vignette that you're trying to do. So I'm going to have something probably like this. And it's a bit too imposing on the edges, it's a bit too dark. So I can go to transform, opacity, and drag the opacity down so it's not quite as insane. I'll drag my opacity down to about 70% there. So that's a nice background for us to work with now. I can collapse all my layers down so I don't get a headache, and we can now start to import animate our layer, our logo. So if I turn our logo back on, it's all sitting there nice and smug. We can go and I'm going to have to animate this inside of this pre-compose layer. So if I double click on the name of the logo, it will bring us into this group, this pre-composed group, and we can see all this. The black backgrounds are kind of annoying me, so I'm just going to go to composition settings, and choose a nice happy off-white color that kind of matches the background of the other one. You won't see that over here anyway, so don't worry. So the first thing we need to do is animate I'm going to start from the first thing I want. So the first thing I want, I left the name layer 2. I didn't rename that. That's really bad. I'm just going to rename that to grass. Okay, so I want to animate this. No, I don't. I want to animate the green circle first. So we've got a nice happy green circle here. To animate that, all we have to do is expand down, go to transform, and you're going to find something called anchor point. It's really important, and the anchor point is this little sort of crosshair thing here. I want that anchor point to be in the middle of the circle so that when I scale it, it scales from the center of the circle, not from the bottom. So I'm going to hit undo there. So I'm just going to go to the anchor point and move any of these numbers and find out which one is the vertical one. It's obviously the right one here. And move that up. That looks like it's probably in the center. Maybe I'm going to go to anchor point and move it maybe a bit. off that way or something, and that'll be fine. Obviously now our grass is going to be slightly off. So now that I've moved my circle layer because of the anchor point, I now have to move it back into position to where it came from, somewhere over there. You can see it's slightly offset now because of that anchor point. But at least now when I resize it and animate that, it's going to be fine. So the next step is to work out how long we want this animation to be. It's nice to have things quite fast and snappy. However, if you think it's too slow, it's easy to change the speed in as a group. So if I just turn everything else off for a minute, at 0, I usually animate backwards. So at 1 second into the video, I want this to be completely in, maybe just over 1 second. So maybe just 1.5 seconds or something like that. At this point in time, I want this circle to be there at that size. So I can go to scale. I can activate keyframing by clicking on the keyframe icon there. And then at this point in time, I'm animating backwards. I want there to be a bit of a bounce. So I want the circle to be slightly larger than it needs to be. Now this is important. If you're enlarging anything on a pre-composed layer, to this, you've got to make sure that you don't grow things off the edge of this sort of composition. So if you see this now, I've resized it a bit too big. If I go to my master comp over here, you can see it's also cropped off there. If I want, I can go to composition settings. If I uncheck lock aspect ratio, I can increase the width to like 800 pixels as well. And then that will make the composition larger if needed. But I don't really need it to be that big. So I'm just going to have it growing to about there, which is just a bit bigger than its final stage, so maybe 115%. And then at 0 seconds, it's going to be 0% in scale. And so it's completely invisible, basically. So if I drag my time slider, I can see it's doing that. I'm going to hit the play button, wait for it to buffer into the memory, and then hit the play button again, and to see how that looks. Okay, that was a bit slow, to be honest. So I'm just going to move these keyframes in a bit and see how I feel about that. Yep, so that's a bit better. There's a moment the circle doesn't accelerate or decelerate. It just sort of is going at a constant speed. It looks really boring. You might not notice a difference, but if you select all of these keyframes next to scale, and then on the keyboard, you can hit F9. As I just found out, hitting F9 pauses my recording, and so I was just talking for an hour, not talking to anyone at all. So I'm really depressed now. So I've got to do this all over again. So if you're recording a video, don't hit F9. So I'm going to, this time, right click, go to Keyframe Assistant and go to Easy Ease. And it's going to change from diamonds to little hourglass shapes. So right click and go to Easy Ease. And now if you hit play, it will look better. Okay. So everything I do for the next probably half an hour, I did with the recording paused. So I'm eternally depressed. And I want to go to bed now. So let's just hit play. You might notice like it's got a bit of a bounce, which is really nice. Okay, so that bounces in, and then our grass is going to grow out of the ground, which is over here. Where is it? Oh, it's called grass. There you go. That's why we name stuff. So I've got grass over there, and we now need to create some fairly more advanced masks for this grass. Okay, we're now ready to animate our grass growing in our logo. Okay, so because the grass is taking so long, I'm going to go back into Photoshop where we have our logo, and I'm going to actually separate these 3 blades into 3 separate layers. So let's merge them quick. So to separate these blades of grass, I will just go to select the middle one, and then I will do Control. So I'm just going to rename layer 1 to grass 1. I'm going to do Control X to cut that blade of grass, Control Shift V to paste it, rename it grass 2. And cut this grass out, making sure I'm on the correct layer. Control X, Control Shift V, and rename that grass 3. I'm then going to just save this Photoshop file as a new one. I'm going to delete all these other layers just temporarily. So I've only got the blades of grass on their own on 3 separate layers. We're going to do Control Shift S to save as, or file save as, and this is going to be called logo grass only, and save that. And now I've got these blades of grass on 3 separate layers. I can now go into and drag that into, so if I drag that logo grass only into my project area, making sure it chooses composition with editable layer styles, hit OK. I've got the grass only, which I can drag. So I drag these 3 layers into here, and that does line up quite nicely. So I just went into this folder called grass only layers. I'm not really interested in bringing in a pre-compose. I just want the layers on their own. I've shift selected all 3 of them and dragged them above all of these other layers that are already there. Okay, and I can probably delete the old grass layer that had them all combined. So now I've got my 3 blades of grass as 3 separate layers. If you didn't understand any of that, then you can just save them out as 3 separate PNG images from Photoshop, and then import them as you like. So now that they're all separate layers, it's going to be really easy to mask out. I'm just going to turn the first 2 off for a minute. So the circle bounces and finishes round about there. So at this point in time, I'm just going to draw a mask down at the bottom, and we're just going to have it growing up like that. So the mask is down here at the bottom. We can't see anything, which is good. So I'm going to go to mask 1. I'm going to go and keyframe mask path. Shortly later, I'm going to go and drag that up to the top like that, and I'm just going to go ahead and give a little play and see if that's going too fast or too slow. That was quite a good speed. So the speed of that one was going from just like about a quarter of a second or something, so that's fine. And I can now go to grass 2. And that's going to be starting to grow just as the first one stops. So I could create a new mask, but that's too much effort. So I'm going to go over to where it says masks. I can collapse all these down. So my original grass one, I've got a mask here, and I can see that it's doing that nice growing thing. If I click on that mask and hit Control C, or just click on masks in general and hit Control C, making sure your time slide is at the point where you would like the next bit of grass to grow. Go up to grass 2 and hit Control V, and then you can see 2 little grayed out keyframes, and it's going to make the mask do something similar on this layer as well if I turn it on. And so the grass grows like that. And I might just drag those keyframes left a bit so that it's maybe starts to grow a bit sooner. So as the first one's about halfway out, the second one goes, and again I'm going to copy that masks. So again, if I go halfway through my animation of this one, I can go to my top grass layer, turn that one on, and go to just hit Control V and paste that. So making sure my time slide is where I want it to start, which is when this one's halfway through. And now the first one will grow, the second one will grow, and the third one will grow quite quickly like that. Okay, and the next thing I want to do is make the text appear. So to make the text appear, I can go down to, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. I'm going to do this really quickly, so I'll do the word green first, and this is going to appear while the last blade of grass is halfway up. So maybe when it's finished, I want this to be perfectly visible. So I'm now going to go and add a blur effect. I can go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, Gaussian Blur, and click on that. And it'll add effects to your layer. Drop down to Gaussian Blur and keyframe blurriness at this point in time. If by just before 2 seconds you want to see that word visible, then keyframe that there. We're now going to work backwards. and choose a point in time when you want the word green to be completely blurred out, and then drag your blurriness to like 100 or something. Okay. If you want, you could even go down to transform keyframe opacity down to 0 as well, so that you don't see that nasty dark smudge. Okay, and then the word green will go in like that. So I'm going to see if that's going fast enough. And that's fine. So I'm happy with the Gaussian blur effect there. I'm just going to do the same, copy that onto the word initiative. So by the time the word green is finished appearing, I can go to the word initiative, which is just here, and just hit Control V right now. And that will then blur in as well. And feel free to, on the word initiative, go to transform, and then just turn the keyframe the opacity at 100% there, and then at 0 there, just so we get rid of that nasty dark smudge. And so now our animation should look something like this. Okay. And at the end of the logo animation, I want a nice bright, I want it to like flash white or something, so I can just go collapse all my layers down. And if I want this whole logo to sort of flash white, I can see the logo here, it's already grouped. I can just hit Control D to duplicate. To change the color of anything in After Effects, go over to Effects and Presets, and go to where it says Color Correction, scroll down and find Hue and Saturation, which is there. I'm going to double click on that, or drag it onto the layer, but I'm just going to double click on Hue and Saturation with the correct, or the top green initiative, or top logo layer selected. And then I'm going to drag the lightness up to max. So it goes like this. And now I'm going to go to create a mask on this top layer like this. And if you just drag over it, it will obviously reveal, like something like that. So once the logo's finished animating, which is when the word initiative has finished appearing, I'm going to just drag this just off of screen. I'm going to make it slightly distorted like this as well. So it does something like that. I could make it maybe a bit narrower if I wanted. Move it just off of the bottom of the word initiative. And then you could obviously do this from left to right as well. So mask 1, expand down, mask path, keyframe that there, and then go to a short duration later and drag this to the very top. And then if you sort of slide through here, you should see it slide through like that. That's obviously a bit too bright, so you can go to transform, opacity of that layer, and drag that down a bit just so it's not quite as bright. If we don't, obviously this reflection has quite sharp edges, which is actually quite nice. If you did want blurry edges, you could just go to mask feather and drag that up a bit if you want to have a slightly blurry edge to your sheen, and that looks quite nice as well. Okay, so the logo animation at the moment looks something like this. If I just buffer that into the memory. Okay, and so that's nice and quick. I can see where the word initiative here is unfortunately being cropped off. So I have to go to over here, I have to go to composition settings, I have to change the height to, let's say, 1000, hit OK, and now there's got more room for that blur, which should be fine. Okay, so that's our logo animation done there. Okay, and let's say at this point in time, I want to move this logo up to the side or something, resize it down a bit perhaps. So I'll find out when I want to start to move the logo, which is when that sheen's gone over the top of it. I'm then going to just simply go to transform and keyframe position and scale at that point in time. And then go to 3 seconds in and move it to, 3 seconds in and move it to where you'd like it to. Yeah, okay, I've got the vignette on here. I'm just going to turn that off so I'm not accidentally moving stuff through it. I'm now going to go ahead and move this logo to where I'd like it to be, and I can drag. Let's put a keyframe in the whoops, I need to make sure I do this with the this is the highlight at the moment. I should probably rename that to highlight. So I've done that wrong. So collapse that, go into this one instead. Now I can go to transform, and after the logo's finished its animation, I can then go to keyframe the position and scale. I'm just going to rename that one to highlight. And then I've got this guy over here, and then I can move that to the top right. So I can then move this over here. Now I can see a keyframe appearing, and then I can go to scale and make that as big or as small as I like, and just pop that over there for now. And again, if you were to select all these and hit F9 or right click and go to easy ease, it should accelerate and decelerate nicely, which is really important to do. Alright, so the next step is to drag my vignette underneath everything. The next step is to start to bring in all of our other final elements. I want to make the background a bit more interesting, so I'm going to bring in my hexagon pattern into my project window. My project window was hiding behind the effect controls over there. Just click on the word project and then drag in this hexagon pattern, which I've linked to in the description. That's going to go over here. You can then drag this into just above your background. Resize it a lot like this, because what we're going to do is move it over 15 seconds. So the bigger, the better. You can then change the color if you want. I'm going to invert the color of this or just make it brighter. So I'm going to double click on hue and saturation and drag the lightness up to max. I'm also going to drag the transparency down to like 20%, so it's not too in your face, and that'll look quite nice. And what we're going to do at frame 0, I'm going to have it at the top right corner. I'm going to keyframe the position, and then at, let's say, 20 seconds, I'm going to move it up there. I'm just going to see if even how long that takes to move. If I go ahead and hit play, yeah, we can see it moving slowly across like that, and that should look quite nice. In fact, it'd probably be better if I swap these keyframes over so it's actually moving the other direction. Like that, there we go. So now it looks like this sort of the logos, everyone's moving in a right direction against the background, which is quite a positive flow. So that's fine, so that's over there. Now I need to drag in the rest of our text. So if you have a video you want to bring in, then you can go ahead and bring. Okay, so at the end of the most YouTube videos, you'll see like either the same video you just watched replaying again, or maybe it will have the next video that they want you to watch playing up there that you can click on. So I'm going to import a video into my composition now. So I've got the folder open here. I'm going to use a video from one of my previous tutorials on how to create a planet from scratch. I'm going to drag that over to my project area over here and wait for that to import. So that's a video, and then I'm going to just drag that into my timeline at the very top, and that's in there. I'm going to resize the video down to the size I want it to be in here, and that should be okay there for now. And I want to trim off the top corner of my video for just so it doesn't look as boring. I seem to have an obsession with this, so I'm just going to got my planet video there, and then I can go to my pen tool and create a new mask. Make sure the layer is selected, and you can just go ahead and create a new mask for that. If I trim off that top corner, obviously it's going to only choose what's inside there. If I go to my masks, I can choose inverted, and I'll change the shape of the video just to spice things up a bit, make it look a bit more interesting. Now I need to bring in our text. which I was going to type in down here. Okay, so I can my text is popping up really small over there. To change the size of your text, you should see your character sort of window here. If you can't see that, go to Window, Character, and it should pop up somewhere. And then you can change the size of your text and choose a nice modern font. And I can change the size of all my text. That's Control A and drag down the size of this. I want it to be bold text as well, and I want to choose a color that isn't pure white. So I might just choose an off black or dark grey color like that, and that's going to go there. In fact, what I probably should do is have each of these words on a separate layer so that they can all blur in separately. So if I go to support, I can hit Control D, duplicate that layer. I'm going to move that word over here slightly. I'm going to go over here and change it to us. Sling that over there. And then hit Control D and move that layer over there and change it to now.